Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Javier. I'm the Director of Youth and Justice Grants at Commonwealth Corporation. I'm joined by my colleague Esthed Ovaje, Senior Program Manager of our Adult Reentry Program. This is a pre-recorded bidders webinar about the PY27 Reentry Workforce Development Demonstration Program for FY27 appropriation. We'll be going through some of the requirements of the PY27 RFP in this webinar, and there will be an opportunity to ask questions live during our office hours on May 13th, which is a Wednesday, I believe, from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. So we invite you all to join us there to ask questions. You can also submit a question online through our submissions form. We have a QR code at the end of the presentation that you can access to submit a question online. We will be posting answers to those questions every Friday up until May 26th. The applications for this procurement is June 2nd. I'll pass it on to Esthed to talk a little bit about the initiative.
All right, so the Reentry Workforce Development Demonstration Program is an initiative of Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development, Lauren Jones, in support of the Healy Driscoll's administration efforts to improve workforce outcomes for individuals returning to their communities after incarceration. We will refer to these individuals as returning citizens during this webinar. This is an annual grant that aims to increase the number of formerly incarcerated individuals that are successfully placed into career-tracked and sustainable wage employment opportunities. This state-funded initiative is administered by Commonwealth Corporation, who we may refer to as ComCorp, on behalf of the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development. This grant initiative is funded through a General Appropriation Act in the fiscal year 2027 state budget. So in terms of our initiative goals, Commonwealth Corporation is seeking applications from partnerships that have demonstrated expertise, success, and current capacity in providing occupationally focused training and placement grant programs for returning citizens. Applicants must demonstrate that the services they plan to provide will result in job placements as measured by participants securing and retaining a job for at least 30 days. Participants may secure and retain employment up to 3 months after the grant period end date. And those successful employment outcomes may be reported up to 3 months after the grant period update as well. Research shows that pre-release training, education, and case management can have a positive effect on post-release wages and reduce recidivism. All right, so for the purposes of this solicitation, the following terms are defined as follows. Applicants. So those are organizations applying to receive funds, accountable to grant terms and responsible for coordinating all activities of the grant program. Partners, organizations committed to working together with the applicant to implement the grant program. Required partners must have an executed partnership agreement through a memorandum of agreement, a memorandum of understanding, or a letter of support. Partnerships, so collectively all the partners working together to implement the grant program. Participants, eligible individuals enrolled in the grant program. Grant program, the proposed training, case management, wraparound support, and job placement grant program. Partnership agreement, a formal document such as a memorandum of understanding, memorandum of agreement, or letter of support that confirms an organization's participation in the proposed partnership and outlines its specific role in the project. So resources and expectations. Commonwealth Corporation anticipates awarding up to a total of $2.25 million in grants through this solicitation. This projection is based on funding anticipated to be appropriated in the FY27 budget. A maximum investment target of $15,000 per employment outcome has been established. But please note, the most competitive historical applications have averaged approximately $7,205 per employment outcome. This per person amount includes all the expenses required to obtain an employment outcome, including recruitment, training, support, program design, and program management. Please note, proposals must include an enrollment and training schedule that allows for job placement on this timeline. Partnerships will have approximately 12 months to deliver their grant program, and we ask that applicants be thoughtful when thinking about the proposed program to deliver that would maximize public dollars. So moving on to grant expectations. This is an annual grant, so it's pretty unique, and wanting to note that it's not a multi-year grant. Each award is tied to a specific procurement and a defined time frame. For those who are selected again in a future round, this is treated as a completely separate award. Any expenses tied to participants or activities from a previous cohort, so before the contract start date, are not eligible for reimbursement under this new grant. So the overall takeaway is each award stands on its own, on a different contract, and with its own timeline and funding boundaries.
Okay, so who's eligible to apply for this procurement? The following organizations are eligible to apply as applicants on behalf of a partnership. So nonprofits or community-based organizations, particularly those with a track record of serving returning citizens. And this includes training and other service providers. Mass hire workforce boards, mass hire career centers, HOC or DOC facilities or House of Correction or Department of Correction facilities, probation or parole offices, state and or local government agencies, private educational institutions, membership association or consortiums, including labor organizations, and honestly, any other agencies or entities who are able to receive state funding and are deemed eligible by Commonwealth Corporation. We recognize that collaborations that bridge corrections and workforce development are critical to supporting successful transitions for returning citizens. And so we strongly encourage proposals that leverage existing partnerships between the correctional agencies and mass hire workforce boards or career centers to apply. As far as a partnership goes, the partnership collectively demonstrates experience, success, and current capacity to deliver occupational training and employment services that lead to job placement for the target population. The required partnership members are at least 2 businesses or employer partners with operations in Massachusetts and that employ Massachusetts residents in the target occupation or occupations, at least 1 training provider with demonstrated expertise in providing occupational skills and work readiness training and placing individuals in the target occupation, at least 1 CBO or community-based organization with a demonstrated expertise in engaging and supporting the target population, and a proven track record of practicing culturally responsive care in the community, and at least 1 partnership with a corrections agency. Formerly, this has been an HOC or DOC partner, but we have, for this RFP, broadened this partnership to include the Department of Youth Services, probation, and parole offices, recognizing the different entities you may work with in serving the target population. We want to clarify the role of the lead applicant in particular. So the lead applicant can serve in any of the required roles except for the employer partner. So we do require 2 employer partners that are external. That doesn't mean that the lead applicant cannot be an employer partner. They just cannot fill the minimum 2 required partner roles. And so lead applicants are free to also be an employer partner and hire the target population, but we are requiring you to submit a partnership agreement with 2 external employer partners. The lead applicant can are free to fulfill any other role. So the training provider, the community-based organization, or the correction agency can also be the lead applicant. And if that is the case, you do not need to submit an MOU, an MOA, or letter of support. Instead, we're asking you to clearly describe what your role is and your responsibilities and deliverables in your program narrative. The selected applicant will be responsible for all fiscal and administrative management of the grant, including financial oversight and data reporting. So what is a partnership agreement? Formally, in past RFPs, this has been referred to a requirement of an MOA or an MOU executed between members of the partnership. We have broadened this requirement to just be a partnership agreement. So what that is a formal document such as an MOU, an MOA, a letter of support, or a letter of commitment that confirms an organization's participation in the proposed partnership and outlines its specific role in the project. And so there is no required format, but the document must include the following: a clear description of the role, specific responsibilities and deliverables, a designated point of contact with an email address, evidence of shared investment in the program's success. For corrections agencies, we do require the number of referrals. For employer partners, we require a number of interviews or job placements offered. And for CBOs, defined services or supports. All of this is outlined in Section 2 of the RFP and in Attachment 6. All partnership agreements must include all of these elements, including that it's up to date and signed, and must be, you'll see later on as you submit your application, must be submitted separately and not uploaded as sort of a batch of partnership agreements. But that will be clearly outlined as you submit your proposal. So as far as target populations go, Commonwealth Corporation is seeking competitive applications from partnerships with demonstrated experience, success, and current capacity in delivering occupational skills and training and job placement programs for returning citizens. That is the target population. Eligible participants include adults ages 18 or older who are scheduled for release from a House of Correction, Department of Correction, or Department of Youth Services, DYS facility within 180 days of the grant program start date, or were released from one of these facilities up to 18 months prior to enrollment, or a combination of both. So this eligibility has been broadened a little bit. So we're not just seeking referrals from an HOC or DOC facility, but we've broadened it to DYS as well.
So for target occupations, the goal is to provide training and placement services that prepare individuals to meet a regional business skill need and work readiness requirements for in-demand occupations. Applicants may either propose to train individuals for an occupation in a single industry sector or for an occupation that exists in multiple industry sectors. In either case, applicants should identify a specific occupation to be targeted and design a training program that prepares individuals for that specific occupation. Applicants may propose to train individuals for multiple target occupations if that required skill and credentials are identical and can be attained through participation in the same training program. The industry pathways are sourced from the North American Industry Classification System, the federal standard used in classifying businesses. So to continue on to this, applicants must identify a target region and include information about the unmet demand for workers for that target occupation. The information must come from regional employers. So the following: current and projected vacancies, projected increase in demand for target occupation or skills, credentials required for entry, and demonstrate relevance of the occupation for the region and employers. There's a growing body of research demonstrating that job seekers benefit from starting at a higher wage and by participating in programs that provide information and coaching on career continuums beyond the first entry-level job. Such evidence might include the proposed target occupation has attainable opportunities for career advancement and wage progression within a reasonable time frame. Employer partners invest in supporting entry-level employees' career advancement, and the employer partner provides sufficient benefits to support the transition from receiving public benefits. So in terms of program training model, we're looking for applicants to propose a set of services to enroll eligible participants into occupational skills training grant program that will prepare participants for success in the target occupation, optimize participant learning and career development, and ultimately result in the job placement. ComCorp requires you to implement one or both program training models listed below. So first model is a post-release cohort-based occupational skills training and placement grant program. The training schedule must specify the start and end date of each training cohort in attachment 2 and finish prior to the grant end date. This is typically the more popular model, training model that past grantees and applicants have facilitated. The second training model is an individualized pathway for participants to access wraparound services and earn an industry recognized credential, such as ServSafe and OSHA. But there's also additional lists of certifications below. These are also mentioned in section 3 of the RFP of the program design requirements for pre and post-release training.
So the procurement timeline is listed as such. The deadline to submit any written questions is May 22nd. And like I said, at the end of the presentation, we'll have a QR code to the question submissions form. Answers to the written questions will be posted every Friday up until May 26th, and applications are due June 2nd by 11:59 p.m. The earliest anticipated contract start date will be October 1st, 2026. And that will run for 12 months up until September 30th, 2027. We have launched a new form for you all to submit your proposals. And so this is going to be linked in the RFP documents itself, as well as it will be available on our ComCorp website. So if you go to our available funding page at comcorp.org, you will see a link to the submissions form. The first page that you will see is an introductory page. It will give you some specific instructions on how to navigate this submissions form. At the very top will be a couple of links that I suggest that you start with. One link is directly to our RFP document, and the second link is a shared folder with all of the attachments of the RFP. At the very top, you'll also see a progress tracker. It will help you sort of navigate the sections of the submission form. And at the very, very bottom with the green arrow is the button next, which will launch you into the different sections of the submission form. After you read the introduction very thoroughly, the next page will require you to input your organizational details. The first thing that you want to do is to populate your FEIN into that top field, so your federal employer identification number. Once you put that in, If you are an existing organization or you've applied to a previous grant with ComCore or an organizational record exists in our system, it will actually find it and populate all of the details that you have into those remaining fields. Sometimes those fields might be a little bit outdated because we haven't, um, uh, uh, legal name changes or legal address changes. Feel free to edit that directly on there and it will edit it in our system. If you are a completely new organization, what will happen is a window will pop up with that little triangle um, that says that an organization record hasn't been found. And so that's totally okay. You click OK, and then it will allow you to fill out your organizational details into those fields. Once you do that, you can click Next, and another window that will pop up that will say that your organization has been created into our system. After you've completed your organizational details, it will navigate you to the contacts page. This is the page where your application really starts. And so once you start populating contacts into this section, the system will generate the application for you. And actually will auto save any information that you populate into the submission form from this point forward. And so if you, for example, have to step away or exit out of a submissions form, you can navigate back to it by entering your FEIN into that organizational details page, and it will find your application in the system and hopefully has saved the information that you've populated. Like I said, this is a completely new form for us. And so if you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please email us at reentry@comcore.org. That's re-entry@comcore.org to submit any um, technical difficulties, experiences. Please include screenshots so that our team can best troubleshoot this issue for you. Once you've navigated through all of the different sections, you will hit the final acknowledgement page where it is just a self-attestation and a signature, an electronic signature. You will hit submit at the very bottom of the page. A fair warning for some users, there is maybe a 10-second loading period where it looks like you haven't submitted or it looks like you might want to click submit again and try to resist that temptation. Just wait a good solid 10 seconds and it should accept your application. If there are any issues where it doesn't do that or it doesn't redirect you to our funding page or you don't receive any confirmation that your application has been submitted, it probably hasn't. And so if an application has been submitted, what will happen is a window will pop up confirming receipt of the application. And you will have also received an email confirming that your application has been received. And so if neither of those things happen, if you don't get an email, if that window doesn't pop up, go ahead and email us and let us know. It's likely that your application hasn't been submitted. And so a way to test that is to actually go back to to refresh your browser, enter your FEIN, and if application repopulates, then it means it hasn't been successfully submitted. But if it has, a confirmation will be prompted to let you know that we have received your application. And so, like I said, confirmation email, confirmation window, if those things don't happen, please reach out. The next thing we wanted to share with you is that we do have this Industry Pathways and Training Work Plan, which is attachment 2. This is a new attachment from previous years. Applicants must complete the accompanying spreadsheet to provide key details about their proposed training. The spreadsheet collects information such as your industry pathway or pathways, plural, that you're planning to propose for this application, target occupations, projected enrollment and completion numbers, delivery format, training timeline, any credentials that participants will earn. Please ensure that all fields are filled out accurately and reflect the commitments described in your proposal.
So attachment 5 are your budget forms. Attachment 5 has different sections, so 5A, 5B, and 5C, which are the budget summary, the budget request form, and the outcomes chart form. There are additional detailed tabs for internal staff salary, designated for grant program staff only, support services, and contracted services that will populate into areas in the form mentioned above. This attachment is titled PY27 Reentry Budget Form. You must submit a detailed budget request using the forms provided. If you have applied for funding in the past, please ensure that you are using this updated budgets form. The budget will also become the financial basis for any grant award, and this grant is a cost reimbursement format. All right, so moving on to the last tab of that attachment, that is the planned outcome goals chart page. So there'll be 2 tables on that page. The first table will have the outcome measurements, which is the different benchmarks defined by this grant. The different goals will be based on your enrollments, the number of participants completing the training, and those that are placed in unsubsidized employment as defined in the grant. To the right of that chart are the quarterly cumulative goals. So each of those quarter end dates will build from the prior quarter. Once you navigate towards the table listed below, that one will be defined by goals and industry pathways. So the column that says industry pathways, you'll click on those rows. The little box with the arrow pointing down, that will show you a pre-filled drop-down menu that you can select from. For each of those pathways, you'll also identify the training start and end date. The training start and end date must fall within the grant period defined in the RFP. So those dates do need to occur with the actual start and end dates set by the grant. And you'll also enter the number of enrollments, training completions, industry recognized credentials, and employments that you seek to obtain all your participants to complete. So those will be defined by each of the industry pathways. Next.
All right. One of the required documents that we are asking applicants to submit is the Certificate of Good Standing. This Certificate of Good Standing should be from the Department of Revenue. It is not the same as the Certificate of Good Standing that you might get from the Secretary of State. And so we are looking for the COGS from the Department of Revenue, and they must be less than 6 months old from the date of the RFP application submission. This you can refer to Section 6 of the RFP for more details. Note that community colleges, public vocational technical high schools, and public state universities serving as the applicant do not need to submit a COGS. So another document that we're asking applicants to supply is their certificate of compliance from the Massachusetts Department of Unemployment. This is a self-service process, so you can actually request the certificate of compliance by following the step-by-step guide that we've linked in the RFP. All of the certificate of compliances must be up to date and cannot be expired by the time you submit your application. The certificate of compliance is valid for 30 days from the date of issuance. Lastly, the last legal document we do ask applicants to supply is the most current copy of their W-9. The W-9 must be signed within the last 12 months as part of the application process. Applicants selected for funding are required to submit an updated W-9 form if changes occur to the applicant's legal name, tax ID, business address, or upon request by ComCore. We've listed the application submission package components in the RFP, section 5C. This is just a partial view, so this is not all the components in the package, but I encourage you to please refer to this, to section 5C to ensure that you have all of the components of the application package before you start the submission process. Some submission tips from us. Please review the RFP and its attachments carefully before preparing your proposal. Make sure all required forms and attachments are completed before starting the submission process. Confirm that all the files are complete, readable, up to date, and in the required format. Please allow for sufficient time prior to the deadline for uploading the materials and submitting the form. Like I said before, we are using a completely new form to submit your application. And so anticipating any technical difficulties, please allow yourself ample time to upload and submit the form. Retain a copy of your final submission confirmation for your records. This should be the email that is sent to you upon submitting the application. Or you can also screenshot the confirmation window that pops up after successfully submitting your proposal. And for any questions or run-ins, technical issues or anything like that, please don't hesitate to email reentry@comcore.org. That's re-entry@comcore.org. We want to be as helpful as possible or make sure that this process is as smooth as possible for our applicants. And so please reach out if you run into any issues. All right, lastly, as promised, we have provided a couple of QR codes for you. To the left in blue is the QR code to register for our office hours next week. And so this is May 13th from 11 to 12 p.m. Me and Ested will be answering any clarifying questions from bidders. So if you want to register, please scan the QR code to your left. And we hope that you all can attend to listen in or ask questions. The QR code to your right is to our question submissions form. And so this will lead you to a form to ask to submit any written questions to us. And we will post answers to your written questions every Friday up until May 26th. The deadline to submit your written questions is May 22nd. There is also, I'll mention that the QR code to your right, the question submission form, will also allow you to let us know if you want to be notified for when answers to these questions are posted on our website. And so if you don't want to submit a question, but you do want to be notified about when these questions come up and when they're answered, click on that, use this QR code as well. And there will be an ability for you to mark if you want to be notified for when questions go live. And that's the end of the bidders webinar. Thank you so much for listening in, for viewing. If you do have any other questions, like I said, use that question submissions form. If you run into any technical issues, please email reentry@comcore.org. But like I said, thank you so much for your attention and best of luck.